Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning. Look at this turnout. Jason is going to do the honors and take all of the required legal steps for opening this meeting de rigueur. So go ahead. This is the meeting of the audit committees of Housing Finance Agency, New York State Affordable Housing Corporation, State of New York Mortgage Agency, State of New York Municipal Bond Bank Agency, and the Tobacco Settlement Financing Corporation.
Thank you, Chairman Bialo. I would like to note that Renee Nowicki is attending the Audit Committee meeting via video conference from the New York State Division of Budget Conference Center at the Capitol Building, room 131 in Albany. Stephen Weiss, HFA AHC Governance Committee Chairman, is attending the meetings from the agency's Buffalo
Just a second, Jason, I think we might have a problem with audio. Do we have audio in Albany?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep. Buffalo, Steve, can you hear us? All right, I think we have a problem with audio with Steve.
We don't need him for the audit committees yet, so we can try to fix that.
We're working on it, yeah?
That's it, Alex. Out and Z with Steve.
Okay, I will. I will now ask for motions and seconds to call to order the September 9, 2014 Audit Committee meetings of the New York State Housing Finance Agency, the New York State Affordable Housing Corporation, State of New York Mortgage Agency, State of New York Municipal Bond Bank Agency, and the Tobacco Settlement Financing Corporation. May I have motions for HFA and AHC and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Motion for Sunny Mae and a second.
So moved.
Second.
And motion for MBBA and TSFC and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Kenneth Bialo is the Audit Committee Chairman for the Municipal Bond Bank Agency and the Tobacco Settlement Financing Corporation and will chair the committee meetings for MBBA and TSFC. Commissioner Towns is the Audit Committee Acting Chairman for the HFA and AHC Audit Committees and will chair the committee meetings for HFA and AHC. Mr. Anthony Bergamo is the Audit Committee Chairman for Sunny Mae and will chair the committee meeting for Sunny Mae. As items are presented to each committee throughout today's meetings, these motions and seconds will be used unless specific items call for a different vote or unless any board member or director wishes to record his or her votes differently. For purposes of convenience and to make sure the meetings of the respective agencies go smoothly, items shared by one or more of our agencies will be presented by Committee Chairman Bialo. Chairman Bialo?
Okay.
Kim, before you go, just for clarification, Jason, Steve can hear us, we can't hear him. So,
Okay,
we'll work on getting him, hopefully by the time we go to governance.
very good.
Alrighty, the first item on the agenda, as it always is approval of the minutes. And the following shall be deemed approved absent corrections from the members and directors. And Andy, we know that you have a correction pending.
I just have a minor correction to the minutes that I was not attending via the video conference at the State Budget Conference Center. I was attending via video conference from the Electric Building in Washington Street in Buffalo.
All right, let me read off the particular items that we are approving by our collective silence, except for Andy's comment. It's the 51st HFA Audit Committee Members Meeting held on June 10, 2014. The 45th AHC Audit Committee Members Meeting held on June 10, 2014. Sunny Mae Audit Committee Directors Meeting held on June 10. 38 MBBA Audit Committee Directors Meeting held on June 10th. And the 37th TSFC Audit Committee Members Meeting held on June 10th, 2014. Are there any other comments other than Andy's? All right, then these are deemed approved. Now we move to items requiring committee action. Item number 2 on the agenda is resolution recommending the approval of the administrative budget request and financial plans for fiscal year 2015. It's for all of the agencies, and Ms. Robinson, you make the presentation and lead us through.
Yes. Bringing up my deputy, Daryl Johnson, and my controller, Gary Weinstein. We are requesting the approval of 3 items by the Audit Committee. The first one is the approval of the agency's fiscal year 2015 administrative budget, not to exceed $56.8 million for the operating expenses of the 5 agencies. The second is the approval of each agency's financial plan, which shows 2015 and 3 additional years of forecasted revenues and expenses for each agency. And the third is approval of the cash program budgets for HFA and MBBA, which shows sufficiency of funds for debt service payments on the bonds. Approval by the directors and members is required by statute, the state controller, regulation, and bond resolutions. Revenues generated by the operation of HFA, Sunny Mae, and MBBA provide the majority of revenues for the budget. TSFC is reimbursed for expenses by the master settlement agreement, and AHC receives an annual appropriation from the state to cover a portion of their expenses. Revenue sources for the administrative budget consist of $32.8 million, or 58% from HFA, $21.3 million, or 37% from Sunny Mae, and less than 5% from MBBA, TSFC, and AHC combined. The budget process was similar to that used last year, as we continue to closely align the expenses to actual costs. The $56.8 million budget is an increase of $1.1 million over last year's budget, or 1.98%, keeping the increase below the 2% level. The increase includes an increase for IT maintenance costs and acquisitions to replace aging equipment, and also to include increases in personal services for the anticipated new hires and increased benefit costs. Staffing has increased from last year's level of 174 to 192 currently, thanks to Sharon's efforts. Thank you, Sharon. And we have 10 approvals for hire in the queue. Discretionary spending,
Wait, I'm sorry, I want to make sure I heard that correctly. Staffing went from what to what?
174 to 192.
Thank you, I thought it was 292.
Oh, no, 190.
No, they asked, wanted to.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
And we have 10 in the queue for approval. Discretionary spending continues to be less than 7% of the budget and remains essentially flat from last year. As for the financial plans, after last year's discussion regarding showing deficits in the 4 projected years, staff reached out to the controller's office to see if we could use accumulated funds available to cover out-year expenses. This change was agreed to by their office, and we were able to show in 4 out of the 5 agencies which have some accumulated funds, no deficits will exist in the next 4 years. AHC, which is the exception, still shows some deficits. For the preliminary cash program budgets, which are required for only HFA and MBBA, these show sufficient funds available to pay debt service. Finals will be provided in January with the year-end financials. And I just want to thank my staff that's sitting here for their help, and those that also helped from the team, and thank you for your consideration.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
Excuse me. The allocation on the administrative budget to TSFC is a little over $1 million. And I was just, is that,
Are you looking at the
I'm sorry. I'm looking
plan?
at- Yes, I'm looking at the revenue sources fiscal budget 2015, which is page 16, I believe, in the tab.
16?
Page, yeah, 16.
Okay.
And that revenue, the revenue source that is being referred to there on page 16, all of that is the master settlement agreement payments.
Yes.
We are now out of the disputed zone there. We're now
Right.
home free, and it's coming in on a routine basis without, I'm talking about the first couple of years of the master settlement agreement. We have a lot further to go, am I
Yes.
correct? We have, how many years are we behind, 10 years?
Yeah, we just got it for that 1 year, 90.
Just one, not even
Yeah.
two, okay.
The others are still being.
So we're still litigating the other two?
Yes.
But this is in anticipation that we will actually get this money in hand this year, this million? No.
Yeah, I believe
Well,
so.
we did get the money.
Yeah.
In
No,
April
no,
of
this
this
is,
year, we got the disputed, but going forward, we base it on the funds that we, from the OS that we said we're gonna get, because you don't know.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Not in-
but projection on funds you think you'll get, but you're not secured yet, is that correct?
We're not, I don't think we're assuming that we're gonna get the disputed payments.
Okay, so this million excludes the disputed
Disputed.
payments? Okay, and the disputed payments come in on a rolling basis, whenever the arbitrators
Whenever they
make their
come.
money? Okay, thank you.
I just have a couple general questions. First of all, obviously holding the line on the budget growth to 1.9% is great. Why are your labor costs going up over 5%, or the salaries? Most state employees are getting no more than 2%, so I was just wondering.
it's also for the new hires that we're anticipating, so we factored their salaries in there also.
Okay, and as far as the, projections going in the out years for both the MBBA and DSFC?
Yes.
I see we have charges for services is just going down relatively significantly. Is that because we don't anticipate any more bond issuances?
Right.
That's it?
But all of this is just forecasting and is
Yes.
subject to the realities of the world as we plod along.
Exactly.
Well, I have to say that it's really nice to see the minus signs removed from
I
the
we thought you might like that.
Made no sense.
Right.
When I talk to people about what the agencies do and talk about how outstandingly they are run and how it's not a taxpayer-financed operation.
Exactly.
Minuses tended to contradict
Grow
what
up.
I was saying. So I now feel better.
We took that into consideration.
Well, thank you very much.
And how about the loss of 3 jobs for internal audit? How do they feel about it?
They were down initially 2 employees, and they have hired up those 2. So now they currently have 4 full-time staff, and they felt comfortable that they were able to do their work with the 4 employees. So they were satisfied. We did go and talk to them, and Sharon also spoke to them if they felt comfortable with their staffing level.
Okay.
And so we're taking on, or the agencies are taking on, what, 18 new people? Did I get the numbers right? So
Yeah.
174 to 192?
Yes,
These
we have
filling
those.
vacant positions, is that what it
Yes,
is?
yes. So we're starting to feel a little bit better about our staffing, so. Because we were down significantly.
Have we had to raise our levels, our compensation levels to attract new candidates? No, we just didn't. We weren't
Trying
making the
harder.
right connections. Now we got the right connections.
Right.
Questions, comments? Jason?
Okay.
You have to do the official piece.
Yes. Now before the committees is a resolution adopting an administrative budget for fiscal year November 1, 2014 to October 31, 2015 for all 5 agencies, and financial plans for fiscal years 2015, 16, 17, and 18 for HFA, Sunny May, MBBA, TSFC, and for AHC, financial plans for fiscal years 2016, 2017, 18, and 19, and preliminary cash budgets for HFA and MBBA for fiscal year 2015, and recommending the approval thereof to the members and directors of the respective 5 agencies. Assuming the first and second previously entered for all the committees, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the resolution adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good job, guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm staying used to it.
It's not a thankless job, thank you. Item You gonna say after?
For the auditors.
Yes, exactly. Item number 3 on the agenda, let's see, my notes here say the next 3 items on the agenda are information items, but the next one is a big information item. And it is a discussion by E&Y of their audit plan for 2014, parenthesis, and 2015 for AHC. Good morning.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
You all know Lou Roberts, the partner on the agency's audit, and Amy Wong is the manager.
Good morning.
Yes.
You have something to tell us?
Something that you probably didn't already hear once before. Feels like we were just here for the audit results for AHC and the single audit, so it's glad to be back. If I could turn your attention to page 2, which is the table of contents. We'll walk through and confirm our services and the reports that we will be issuing this year. We'll go through our audit plan and our audit timetable, and then I'll turn it over to Amy, who will go through our areas of audit emphasis. And then we'll talk about some accounting and auditing developments that the GASB has issued. And then any appendices are for informational purposes. Goes through our communication timetable as far as when we are required to report certain types of items throughout the audit. And last but not least, for a takeaway, is our peer review report, which we have presented to you previously. It's just another copy of our report that KPMG issued on our internal processes. Page 3 is a listing of our reports and deliverables. We will express an opinion on the financial statements of HFA, Sunny Mae, MBBA, and Tobacco for the year ended October 31st, 2014. And then we'll come back in the spring to audit AHC, which has a March 31 year end. We will also express opinions on the compliance with OMB A133 for your schedules of expenditures of federal awards for HFA and Sunny Mae. And in connection with those audits, we issue a report on internal controls in accordance with government auditing standards. We will issue communications to management and the audit committee relative to any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses if we identified those during the course of the audit, and also issue a management letter which would provide any items that we noted during the current year, as well as comment on the status of the findings or recommendations from the prior year. We also issue agreed upon procedures with respect to the real estate assessment center submission that's required by HUD. And that's something that we typically issue in the summertime, just due to closing out all of the information and the timelines as required by HUD. So we meet those deadlines. We also issue, in accordance with the PAAA, an investment guidelines established for agency as a special report on investments. And then we also issue a report on supplementary information for HFA. Turning to the next page, this is just to highlight some of the things that we were going to talk about: the timeline, our scope and areas of audit emphasis, internal control assessments, and any accounting developments for 2014. So pages 5 and 6 just kind of chart out our timeline. We were in here August, and we are still completing our internal control assessments through September. And we will come back in November, which you'll see on page 6, to start the year-end audit procedures and wrap up the audits in January to come before you at the end of January to present our audit results. And then, as I had indicated, we will be issuing the single audit reports probably at the June meeting, which is consistent with what we've been doing in the past. And now I will turn it over to Amy to just walk through and revisit our areas of audit emphasis on pages 8 and 9.
Morning, everybody. So I'm just going to briefly run through areas that we focus on during our audits. starting with internal controls over applications that affect the financial statements. So as Lou had indicated, the majority of the work was performed in mid-August, and we're going through the final reviews right now. And in conjunction with looking at the internal controls, this is where we update our understanding of the processes through inquiries of management, the process owners. We're updating our narratives, and we're selecting a sample of routine transactions to test over these significant processes as listed on the right of this table, and these processes are consistent with prior year areas that we've reviewed. Also, as Lou mentioned, in November, we'll come back for our substantive work. And related to that, we will be taking a look at cash and investments, where we'll confirm all of the agency's balances and agree them back to the general ledger. We'll review the risk disclosures as required by GASB, and we'll also test that the restriction of certain cash and investments are fairly presented on the balance sheet. As it relates to AR and allowances, we'll confirm a sample of significant mortgage and loan balances. We'll also review the agency's allowance methodology for reasonableness. Turning to page 9, as it relates to obligations for post-employment benefits, or what we call OPEB, the agencies are required to get a new valuation for the 2014 audit. We will be utilizing our EY actuary to review the calculation and assumptions related to the liability. We'll also be testing the census data provided to the actuaries by agencies management, and we've also started that process in August when we're here reviewing the internal controls. With net position, we'll test the changes to net position through our testing of revenues and expenses as stated on the P&L. We'll also test classifications of the different categories of net position. As it relates to litigation and loss contingencies, we'll review for material litigation and loss items that need to be included in the financial statements, whether as a disclosure or anything that requires recognition in the financial statements. With the reserves, we'll also test that the agency's reserve policy and also look at the calculation and estimates for reasonableness. Compliance with applicable laws, regulations, and contractual provisions. So as Lou had mentioned earlier, we do issue a report over the investments as it relates or in accordance with PAAA. And we will also be in accordance with our single audit, looking at compliance with federal and grant requirements. With the debt, we will confirm all outstanding debt as of 10/31. We'll test compliance with debt covenants. We'll also test the interest rate swap valuation and hedge effectiveness utilizing EY internalist specialists as necessary, and we'll recalculate the accrued interest reported at year end. And then operating revenues and expenses, we primarily test in conjunction with our internal control procedures, which we discussed earlier, and most of that was already performed in August. So I'll turn the presentation back to Lou.
Does anybody have any questions with respect to areas of audit emphasis?
Are there any changes in this program?
As of right now, there are not, but to the extent that as we go through finalizing the planning and reviewing internal controls, to the extent that there is another significant account that we've identified by looking at the general ledger, we would certainly incorporate that based upon materiality as a whole to the financial statements.
So this includes everything that was in last year's areas of audit emphasis. And may have, or may come to have, some new things.
That's correct. I believe, just to be specific, that we may not have included operating revenue and operating expenses listed here, but it was an area of audit emphasis. But I wanted to make sure that we did have that included in the presentation.
It says operating revenue and operating expenses on the bottom of the page.
Right, but I think in last year's document, we may not have had that.
I have a question,
Good
sir.
idea.
Sir,
Yes.
first of all, thank you for being here. Do you have an opportunity to meet with our internal audit group?
Yes, we do throughout the year, and we do that as part of our planning phase. We were,
Have you met with them?
did we meet with
We did
Steve?
not meet with Steve
Okay.
that early.
Do you know if they have an internal audit plan?
They presented that to you, at one of the previous
Have you
meetings.
looked at it? Have you read
Yes,
it?
yes, we
You
have.
think it's robust? You think it's adequate?
As compared to other state housing finance agencies, it's pretty
No, no, no.
consistent.
Suppose there's no other agency in the world. I'm relying upon you and that young lady next to you. You think it's adequate? I'm not saying it isn't, I'm asking.
I think
Not
based
adequate.
on their mission,
Okay.
it's adequate.
Okay, you think four-person staff is adequate to implement what they have to do? Gee, I'm not saying it is or isn't, I don't know, I'm asking you.
I would need to take a more in-depth look, because I know there has been changes in their organization, and last year they may have been a little understaffed. So I don't feel comfortable commenting on that.
No, I respect that. When you meet them, look at their backgrounds, they have internal audit background, I'd like to know. How strong are they? In other words, there's always a beginner, a new person. There should be some strong people also.
Right.
So you don't have to tell me today when you call.
Yeah, we do that. So everyone who we've met with in the past, will feel comfortable with their backgrounds. But for any new hires that occurred this year, we have not met with them or taken a look at their background.
No problem, I understand. In the course of your travels, of your work.
And Steve mails to us his internal audit reports throughout the year. So even though we're not here physically doing the audit, he mails them to us and we review it. And if we were to feel that there was a significant issue, we would contact Steve and have a further discussion to understand whether or not that should impact our audit plan.
Okay, thank you very much, thank you.
Sure.
As it relates to some of the proposed new GASB regulations on OPEB, are you guys going to look at or give us a review or as what the impact would be on the organization? Have they adopted those regulations yet? Or are they still in a comment period?
They're in the exposure draft period, I believe.
Okay. At some point, will you come back to us and let us know just from from a disclosure or reporting standpoint? What it's
Sure.
the impact that's going to be on this organization
Sure.
as it relates to their post-employment benefit?
Yep.
Thank you.
I think we talked about the impact of GASB 68
Yeah.
for the pension, the unfunded pension liability that would have to be allocated from the state pension system. I don't think any one of us can quantify what that number will be. That will be a number that's determined by the state pension retirement system and go through a calculation to allocate it amongst all of the participating employers. So we do have disclosures in last year's footnotes, but at this point, I haven't seen any numbers. I think the good
No,
thing for
yeah.
New York is that they're pretty well funded as compared to other states.
How's it going to affect the presentation of the financial statements?
You would, the agencies would be recording their proportionate share of the unfunded actuarial liability versus currently what you do. You get a bill from the state that says you're required to pay this amount. If you pay that amount within the fiscal year, you don't have a liability. If you don't, well, then you have the liability. Now, it's not going to be just based on your required contribution. It's going to be the actuarial unfunded liability.
Does that make any sense to you?
I always thought that disclosures were adequate, but this is something that the rating agencies supported and the GASB supported.
Okay.
But I think
That was
Every-
sufficiently touching.
That was a good, that was yeah, that was a,
Denial.
that was a very
Adam,
Machiavellian.
I have no aspirations for politics.
Makes no sense.
All right, thank you.
Completely unique.
Okay. Anything else on the? On page 10, the F word, we perform procedures throughout the year to further understand any risks of fraud or any fraud that's been reported. You know, one of our requirements is to discuss this topic with the audit committee as to whether or not you have any concerns that are new for this year versus last year. And this could be something that we can do one-on-one if you have any issues with controls related to fraud risks. But I would certainly be open to schedule meetings with each one of you individually to have those conversations, if that's okay with you. Okay, and then pages 11 through 15 are the GASB statements that have been recently issued. And when I say recently, within the last 2 years, and these are repeats. GASB 67 applies to the pension plans themselves. It does not apply to the employers who participate in the pension plans. GASB 68, as we had just discussed, that's on page 12. GASB 69 has to do with government combinations and disposals, and do not see this impacting the agencies this year or in the future unless you decide to take on any types of other governmental operations or decide to dispose of one of your agencies. In GASB 70 has to do with the accounting and reporting for non-exchange financial guarantees. So that would be an instance where perhaps the state of New York would guarantee debt for one of its component units, but we don't have those types of relationships between any of the agencies and the state of New York. So they would have to evaluate the going concern of those agencies or any bond rating issues, and perhaps have to add some disclosures in the financial statements of the guarantor.
That apply, your comment applies to both the NBVA and the TSFC. Those are not guaranteed by the state's full faith and credit, but there are, shall we call them, legislative allocation backups. Yes?
State appropriations.
Right, but they're not guaranteeing a particular bond issue.
Probably need to chit chat a little bit with Alex and Jason, just to make sure that the words that you're thinking about are exactly correct.
Right. And that would be a concern for the state of New York. They would have to evaluate MBBA.
I'll tell you, it's a concern for anybody who serves on those boards. That the bond, that the payments are good.
Sure,
Payments
sure.
are made good in
Right.
the event that there is a default.
Right. And part of what we do is for the audit process is to audit the going concern of those agencies
Yeah.
and not default on their debt covenants.
But when they go out to sell these things, there's a difference, and I remember this very clearly when the first TSFC issuance was made, whenever that was. The difference between our bonds and other people's bonds are not only do we have I forget what we had, 140% over, what's the number, 25% over allocation in our revenue streams and our expense streams and so on. But in addition, that there was the, I don't want to say full faith and credit, because it's a legal term. There was a backup pledge from the state legislature that was different for our bonds compared to other people's bonds. So the one thing we don't want to do, if I'm right on that and my memory is correct, what we don't want to do is say one thing on one side and another thing on the other side. We don't want anybody to be thinking there are inconsistencies in the way we look at this. So we need to be very careful about the wording and make sure that we understand what the backup is from the state legislature.
Okay.
Just a thought.
Yeah, thank you. GASB 71 is the most recent GASB pronouncement, and this has to do with the accounting for pension contributions that are made subsequent to the measurement date. And this is really just an accounting treatment. So if you, at one of the agencies, were to make a contribution to the plan after its measurement date, it would be recorded as a deferred outflow of liabilities. And then pages 17 and 18, we've reviewed with you before, but this just summarizes when we would have to communicate certain events to the audit committee. And then page 20 is a copy of our peer review report.
All right. Any thoughts or questions?
Sir, thank you.
Mr. Pagano?
No, Tony, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having us here this morning.
Good to see you.
Good job, guys.
Nice little booklet.
Thank you.
All right, the next two items on the agenda are information only. And there will be no discussion on these unless one of our number requests it. Item number 4 is financial statement update, second and third quarter fiscal 2014 for the 4 agencies listed there, HFA, Sonny Mae, MBBA, TSFC, and the first quarter for fiscal 2015 of the AHC. Does anybody have any comments or questions? Good. Number 5 is report of administrative budget expenditures for 9 months ending July 31st, 2014, and updated financial plans for all 5 agencies. No comments. There being no unfinished business, may we have motions, please, to adjourn each of the meetings?
So moved.
Jason, can you take the, I don't know how I got that piece of it. Can you take the roll there?
Can we have a
Thank you.
motion and a second for each agency to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second, sir.
Assuming the first and second previously entered for all 5 committees, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the audit committee meetings are adjourned. The next audit committee meetings are scheduled for Tuesday, December 9, 2014. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And we will now move to the governance committee meetings.
Anthony, take care.
Good morning, Steve. Can you see and hear us?
Steve's on.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, I'm going to turn things over to Jason, who will take the requisite legal steps to formally open the governance committee meetings.
Yes, I note that Steve Weiss, HFA and AHC Governance Committee Chairman, is attending the meeting from the agency's Buffalo Regional Office at Electric Tower, 535 Washington Street, Suite 105. Renee Nowicki is attending the Governance Committee meeting via video conference from the New York State Division of Budget Conference Center at the Capitol Building, room 131 in Albany. I will now ask for motions and seconds to call to order the September 9, 2014 Governance Committee meetings for the New York State Housing Finance Agency, New York State Affordable Housing Corporation, the State of New York Mortgage Agency, State of New York Municipal Bond Bank Agency, and Tobacco Settlement Financing Corporation. May I have motions for HFA and AHC a second?
So moved.
Second.
Motion for Sonny Mae and a second?
So moved.
Okay. And motions for MBBA and TSFC and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Yes. Good morning, Linda. Stephen Weiss is the Governance Committee Chairman for the New York State Housing Finance Agency and the New York State Affordable Housing Corporation, and will chair the committee meetings for HFA and AHC. Since Naomi Beyer has resigned her positions on the MBBA and TSFC boards, Kenneth Bialo will be the acting chairman for the MBBA and TSFC and will chair the meetings for those agencies. And Daryl C. Towns is the acting chairman for Sonny Mae and will chair the committee meeting for Sonny Mae. As items are presented to each committee throughout today's meetings, these motions and seconds will be used. Unless specific items call for a different vote, or unless any committee member wishes to record his or her votes differently. For purposes of convenience and to make sure the meetings of the respective agencies go smoothly, items shared by one or more of our agencies will be presented by MBBA and TSFC Committee Chairman, Mr. Bialo. Mr. Bialo?
Good morning, everyone. Have one moment of consultation here with council. Which one should I read?
Let's see.
I think this one. Right?
Yes.
Okay. All righty. The following minutes shall be deemed approved absent corrections from members and directors. The 38th HFA Governance Committee Members Meeting, June 10, 2014. The 35th AHC Governance Committee Members Meeting, June 10, 2014. The 38th Sony May Governance Committee Directors Meeting held on June 10, 2014. And it looks like the 33rd NBBA Governance Committee Directors Meeting held on April 8th, 2014, and the 32nd TSFC Governance Committee Members Meeting held on April 8th, 2014. Are there any comments or questions? All right, there being none, the minutes are deemed approved. The next 9 items on the agenda are consent items. There will be no discussions on these items unless committee members or directors so desire. The first item is resolution approving contract with E.G. Bowman for insurance broker services and approval and/or review of various contracts monitored by the Facilities and Administration Department, and this is for all of the agencies. Is there any comment or question? This is under tab 2.
Yes, I have a comment. On page 4 of the memo, within the criteria for selection of E.G. Bowman contract, it mentions that the strategy between agencies overall 25% NWB participation goal should read for this particular procurement, not change the overall agency of all procurements, just for this.
I had that circled in the papers because it was struck me as a little odd. The number, I don't remember the number coming up before as 25%. Okay, thanks.
Ken, just a quick question.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
On Exhibit A, this is just for clarification.
Exhibit A, okay, that's the chart.
Bowman is not listed there as an MBE or MWB. I'm just wondering, is that, need to correct that?
Bowman is listed on 1, 2, 3, 4th line.
Yes. Am I misreading that?
Pardon me?
Am I misreading that?
Says E.G. Bowman Company, Inc. Is that the right name?
I think the question is, are they an MBE or WBE?
Oh, they are an MBE, so we surpassed the 25% goal.
I see. So why are they not listed on this chart? As...
I think Nestor's just saying they're not indicated as yes under the MBE or WBE columns.
Oh, okay, that was
I have one other question.
Please.
Quick. There was a paragraph on page 7 about contracts, enterprises from discriminatory jurisdictions. It wasn't clear from the memo whether we had any contracts that fell under Article 8, and I was just curious.
We do not.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Any other comments on item number 2, contract with E.G. Bowman? Jason, I think it's up to you.
All right. Now before all 5 agencies is a resolution authorizing approval of contractual agreements for facility, administration, and insurance-related services. Assuming the first and second previously entered for all 5 committees, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the resolution adopted.
All righty, now we go to item number 3. which is a resolution approving contracts for financial services relating to arbitrage rebate calculations. Anybody have any questions or concerns? Marion, maybe one day you'll explain to me what an arbitrage rebate calculation is.
Sure. Briefly, if we make too much money, we have to give it back to the federal government.
Good problem to
You
have.
know what? We all have, everybody in this room has that problem. More than zero is too much. All right, comments, concerns? None? Then Jason, please take it away.
Yes. Now before HFA, Sunny May, MBBA, and TSFC is a resolution authorizing contracts with firms for arbitrage rebate calculation services. Assuming the first and second previously entered for HFA, Sunny May, MBBA, and TSFC, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 The motions are carried and the resolution adopted.
All righty, next item is item 4, and this is approval of contracts with Image Master LLC. Annual review with SS&C Technologies. Again, it's all 5 agencies. These have to do with printing services and the provision of a license for cash flow analysis software. Okay. All righty, any comments or questions about this?
Okay, now before HFA, Sunny May, MBBA, and TSFC is a resolution authorizing the continued retention of contracts with ImageMaster LLC for financial printing services. Assuming the first and second previously entered for HFA, Sunny May, MBBA, and TSFC, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 The motions are carried and the resolution adopted.
So that was 4. Now we go to 5. This is, let's see, resolution approving contract with Gartner, Inc. for information technology consultant services. Can I ask a question about this? Jason, and Commissioner, we did, a while ago, we had, I think it was on an internal review, we had some questions about whether a certain software vendor was delivering and the extent to which, I think Tom raised this, there was going to be a deadline for getting that contractor into shape and in conformity with our needs. And that did not, that's not this company,
No.
is it?
No.
That's a different company. So for the moment, we'll just assume that progress is being made on that front and that we'll review it at an appropriate time, I hope. Alrighty. So anybody have any comments about the proposed agreement with Gartner and Company? Gartner Inc., I'm sorry.
And just a quick question.
Sir?
So on the rest of these, there's a bit of background on how we reached the particular vendor, but I didn't see that here. I'm just curious, a little bit of background.
Share, bit of that share.
So the Gartner, this is a joint sort of venture that we are entering into with state agencies, for the New York State IT. And what it's going to do is give us the ability to have a study form so that we will have a good roadmap for where the agency's IT technologies go. Gartner is an experienced governmental IT consulting firm, and we have a contract with New York State. So we are using that contract.
I see, so we just opted into the contract?
Right, we are using New York State's contract, and it's going to be a joint venture where the state is going to pay half the cost of the study, and the agencies are being asked to pick up the other half of the cost for the study.
Yeah, Gartner is very well known.
Great.
Not that that proves anything, but they're very well known. Alrighty.
Famous
No?
and infamous.
Yes, exactly. Very thin line. Jason, I think we don't have any more comments or thoughts, then it's up to you.
Yes. Now before HFA and Sunny May is a resolution authorizing the approval for information technology consulting services with Gartner, Inc. Assuming the first and second previously entered for HFA and Sunny May, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the resolution adopted.
With respect to item number 6, I don't think I can address this.
Okay.
Because my law firm represents Bank of New York, as I said in the email, and has since 1838. So, can somebody else chair the discussion on this? But
Sure. Chairman Weiss, Steve, might you be able to just introduce item 6 for everybody?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Approval of the HFA Sunny Mae Financial Reporting Services contract with Bloomberg LLP and approval of the Sunny Mae Custody Services Agreement with Bank of New York Mellon. Jason?
Yes. Did anybody have any questions, comments, or a second? Okay, if not, then we'll move ahead. Now before HFA and Sunny Mae is a resolution authorizing the approval for the continued retention of contracts with the Bank of New York Mellon for custody services and Bloomberg LLP for financial reporting services. Assuming the first and second previously entered for HFA and Sunny Mae, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the resolution adopted.
okay, can the record note, please, that I was not participating?
Yes, the record, yes, the record will.
Thank you. The next item is item 7, and this is approval to extend insurance consultant contract with Insurance Advisors LLC and annual review of the insurance consultant contract with Sullivan Hernandez Agency, Inc. and MWBE, and this is for HFA, so the rest of us should keep our mouths shut. And who's here for A?
Yeah, we can do it.
We can, should we go, we'll go ahead with
Yeah,
it
let's
then,
do
yes,
it.
okay. Now before HFA is a resolution authorizing the approval for the continued retention of contracts with firms on the agency's pre-qualified panel of technical assistance providers for the Manufactured Home Cooperative Program. Assuming the first and second previously entered for HFA, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the resolution adopted.
All righty, item number 9. Are we in a position to move on with those?
So let's know, item 9 is Sunny May, so I think we
You
need
need to wait for Steve.
we need,
There we go. Yep.
Okay, we're back.
All righty, Steve, you didn't miss much.
yes.
Except the thing
We're now on to item number 9. All righty, and that's a resolution authorizing the approval to extend the contract with Iron Mountain Intellectual Property Management Inc. and an annual review of contracts with Overture Technologies, which for your information used to be CompuGain, and Xerox Mortgage Services. This is the Sony May item. Are there any comments or concerns?
All right.
That being the case, Jason?
Yes. Now before Sony May is a resolution authorizing the approval for the tri-party escrow agreement among Iron Mountain Intellectual Property Management, Inc., Overture Technologies, and the State of New York Mortgage Agency. Assuming the first and second previously entered for Sony May, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. The motions are carried and the resolution adopted.
All righty, and item number 10 is a resolution approving the agency's master services agreement with M&T Bank, and I think this one, I think I've also, not that I should be participating, but I will. Sony May. Are there any comments or concerns, please?
Okay. Now before Sony May is a resolution reviewing and approving the continued retention of the master servicer contract with M&T Bank. Assuming the first and second previously entered for Sony May, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried and the resolution adopted.
The next 4 items on the agenda are information items. There will be no discussion on the first 2 items. However, there will be presentations on the last 2 items. So the first item is number 11 on the agenda, annual review of contracts with agency's independent auditor, Ernst & Young, LLP, and this is for NBBA and TSFC. And I guess the E&Y folks have left, so we can talk about them. Oh, and this is a no discussion item. All right, item 12, annual review of legal services contract with Denton US LLP as counsel to HFA in its role as lender to the acquired 44 project loan portfolio. This is an HFA matter, and there'll be no discussion about Denton's. Item 13, however, and 14 will have discussion. 13 is presentation on the agency's policies relating to independent registered municipal advisors and the SEC MDC initiative, and this is for 4 agencies, it excludes AHC. I have to ask our president, what's your title now?
President, Finance and Development. If it's Tuesday, it must be.
Okay.
So,
Marion, would you please help
sure.
us with this?
So, good morning, everybody. For you folks
Good
remote, Steve, I've sent this to you by email, and is it Renee? I've sent it to you as well, but Renee, I'm sure you know this already. So I don't need to be a copy for the record. So Dodd-Frank is slowly making its way through everybody's world, and is affecting our world at HFA, Sunny May, MBBA, and TSFC as a bond issuer in a very big way. There are 2 major initiatives that are going on that are really being implemented by the SEC that are affecting the way we do business and how we interact with our partners, and mostly in the investment banking world. The first of which is the so-called MA rule, and it basically has said to investment bankers, you can't have a conversation with your client or potential client and give them advice unless there's a municipal advisor that's somehow involved in that conversation. Really was supposed to take effect of January this year, but there are like reams and reams and reams of guidance and frequently asked questions and information that flowed to the market, and the rule didn't take in effect until July 1st of this year, but it gave us lots of lead time to get ourselves ready. And when I say we, I do want to make sure you know that when we approach new changes like this to the way we do business, we generally having conversations around the agency. So it was largely affects Sheila and her group. It affects me and the debt issuance group and legal. So I want to give a special shout out to Alex and Helen Pennock in the legal department for their work on this, to Gloria, who I think you know from debt issuance, and Sheila and her team for us all coming together and really engaging about how we're going to do this, how we're going to make this work for us. From all of this, there developed a definition of who's a municipal advisor. And municipal advisors can provide advisory service to an entity like us, but they're required that they have to put our interests before their interests. And over the last several years, what we've been seeing anyway from investment banking firms was, an increasing level of disclosure and disclaimers, more like disclaimers. Anytime they said, hey, you ought to think about doing this, basically it said, hey, you ought to think about doing this, but don't really listen to anything we say and don't rely on it, and you're responsible for making your own decisions. And this rule really has firmed that up in the way we do business. It's quite clear. It's created a little bit more distance between the agency and the investment banking firms that we do business with. But let me walk you through a bit of this on a more technical standpoint. So advice, now has quotes about it. What's advice is very specific, and investment banking firms can talk to us about the market. Hey, the market is, interest rates are here and they're trending there. They can't really give us advice about, oh, interest rates are going in this direction and you may want to think of refunding those bonds that are out there. They can't tell us that unless we have a particular exemption that allows us to take that advice. So if you look at page 3, there are 3 exemptions. Then I kind of want to say 3 exemptions. There's the first one, which is basically if Tom called me up because he's a government official, I could take his advice. And otherwise, we can only take advice from an investment banking firm if we have a registered municipal advisor in place, if we've issued an RFP with very specific questions about what we're looking for advice on, or if somebody's already hired to be an underwriter on one of our bond issues. So it's created now, I want to say a slightly more bureaucratic way of interacting with Wall Street firms. And what the agency decided to do, rather than have an RFP out there on a regular basis, only talk to people when they're appointed to underwriters, we want to still maintain as open a dialogue as possible with Wall Street. So we're going to operate on an ongoing basis under the IRMA exemption, under the fact that we're going to have a registered municipal advisor available to each of the issuing entities, so that if folks want to give advice to us, we can then, if we think it's deemed worthy of pursuing further, we can then turn around and bounce that advice off of somebody that's already registered to give us that advice. So we sent out an email to every investment banking firm. You have on page 4 a snapshot of the first page of the email that was sent to folks. It was ultimately, I think, it was a 5-page email. And it basically said, if you want to do this, if you want to give advice to Sunny Mae, you can give it to the agency, either Sheila or myself, depending on the nature of that advice. And copy our advisor, or we're going to consult with our advisor if we think it's worth considering. We have the same thing for HFA. We have the same thing for TSFC and MBBA, and we also have it for swaps and investment funds. So that's now in place. We also set up a particular email account at the agency so people can send the information in there and we can track it and make sure that we're complying with it and can continue to do business as we have, which a couple more bells and whistles and hurdles in front of us.
So you guys are official registered municipal advisors?
We are not. I'm of the opinion, as many people are in the industry, that there ought to be an exemption for sophisticated issuers. I mean, we're among the top, I think the top 25 issuers in the country. I think we should say, like, okay, we kind of know what we're doing. We don't really need to confer with an advisor about what we're doing, but the SEC has said there's not going to be an exemption for sophisticated issuers. I want to just give you a little bit of background about how some other people in the industry think about this. This is a quote from the head of SIFMA, the Securities Industry and Financial Markets Association. He says that the SEC created a new regulatory regime for underwriters, restricting their ability to advise state and local government issuers, while indirectly imposing an unfunded mandate on governments by prescribing the hiring of financial advisors as one way to garner advice and information from underwriters. Okay.
There are a few other comments that you can make, not just what we won't do that. Just leave it alone. That's right, keep anybody for trying to explain to us the inexplicable.
And there's one more piece of it, actually, I want to go through, but I want to go to your question,
Did you
Linda.
mention who are registered?
Oh, no, that's great. Thank you. So for HFA, it's, I forget the name of their firm. It's Kane Mitter, thank you. For Sunny Mae, it's CSG. And for MEBA and TSFC, it's Prague. And these are firms who are all, it's Public Resources Advisory Group. It's all firms that the agency has otherwise done business with. It doesn't preclude us on any individual financing from hiring a different firm off of our panel. We just have to have somebody in place in case there's an idea that's submitted to us that we want to then explore. We have to have somebody in place to turn to them. But it's been our practice and will continue to be our practice. When we actually hire a financial advisor firm for any particular transaction, we intend to still broadly select from our FA panel.
So the information will be funneled into the agency through you guys, and you will then make sure that if it's required to have some
If we think
quotes
it's
advice, you will have the quotes advice.
Yes. But we do have yes, it comes to us, we decide whether we want to pursue it further, and then we move on from there. The next one on page 5, MCDC. I want to tell you what I call this. This is the Rat Out Your Client initiative. And this goes to continuing disclosure. And the agency, in all of its official statements, is making statements about itself and the nature of the offering that we're making. And we're required to also say that we've continued to comply with our continuing disclosure agreements. And in the event that we have missed something that we were supposed to do, we also have to tell the market that we missed that. And what this initiative does has said that investment bankers have to make sure that every securities offering that they were involved with, met these requirements, this continuing disclosure requirements, and that everything that the agency was, or in certain cases, developers were required to disclose to the market was disclosed, either affirmatively or in the case where we might have missed something. And I want to say that this is required for things that are material, although folks have declined and avoided defining what material means. So we have, as we always do, continued to go back and do a thorough review of everything that we've said in our official statements since continuing disclosure came into being, and our investment banking firms that we've done business with over that period of time have done the same. And we've now heard from almost everybody that we've done business with that they've scrubbed what we've done, that they haven't seen anything that the agency has done that it failed to disclose in any way. We came to the same conclusion ourselves, that there were no material omissions in anything we said to the public. And this is something that went into effect the beginning of September for the agency, and actually it's the other way, went into effect at the beginning of September for investment banking firms, will go into effect December 1st, not into effect, it's the deadline for making that information public. The agency's deadline for doing so is December 1st. So this is the new normal of operating.
The only thing I would add is that for TSFC and MBBA, the division of the budget did the same thing.
Oh, yes, that's a good point.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody.
A lucid explanation of the OP. All righty, item number 14, it's a new item,
A quick item for you.
and it's a quick item.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I just wanted to stop by and let the board know that the agency will be attending the governor's annual MWBE conference. We're going with heavy hitters. We have representation from legal, Jason, underwriting, Marion, accounting, Daryl Johnson and Desmond Gooding, Brett Garwood and Sharon Devine, in efforts of showing the committee planners and the governor that this agency is committed to MWBE participation. I am an advisor on the planning committee for this conference, and we'll be having a booth, so you'll know that the agency is well attended there. But today I wanted to highlight some projects that have met or exceeded their MWBE goals. You know, our team covers the development projects on HFA as well as capital projects on the HTF side. And Renee, I have to send you a copy. I'm sorry, Steve, I think I emailed this to you. Just for your information.
I got it.
There are several projects that have met or exceeded their MWBE goals. Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to, I think it's worth highlighting to the board that the efforts are, it's happening. We have met with the new president and CEO of NYSAFA, along with development to identify ways to encourage the affordable housing development industry to engage MWBEs. Also, I wanted to let you know today that the agency is on a good start. We achieved 18% MWBE participation for Q1. And I'd like to ask Lisa to join me to talk about the agency's Q3 procurement report. Because as we submit to the state our MWBE participation of 18%, That includes procurement, development activity, as well as underwriting activity, and we're on a different quarter, if you will. Ours is state, and the agency's fiscal year is different, so you'll see different numbers. But I just wanted to stop by today to let you know that activity is happening. I participate on all RFP committees, and RFPs that have come to the board for contracts, all of them have MWBE participation in some form or fashion.
I just wanted to note that we did exceptionally well this third quarter. We usually do about 30% NWB participation. This quarter was in excess of 45%. We've been, the purchase orders have been carrying most of the procurements, and the contracts have been doing about 10% MWB participation. I'm pleased to announce that the contracts went to 30% this quarter. And from the 189,000 in MWB participation on contracts, legal contracts was a major contributor to this number, and there was in excess of 124,000 in MW participation out of the $189,000. So we did exceptionally well this quarter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. There being no unfinished business, may we have motions and seconds to adjourn each of the 5 agencies' members and directors' governance committee meetings.
So moved.
Second?
So moved. Linda?
Second.
Assuming the first and second previously entered for all the committees, all in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motions are carried, and the governance committee meetings are adjourned. And next governance committee meetings are scheduled for Tuesday, December 9, 2014. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mary.